The morning sun rose over New Haven like any other day. Golden light spread across endless fields of wheat that swayed in the gentle wind. Children laughed as they ran to school. Farmers checked their crops with satisfied smiles. Nobody knew that in 6 hours everything would be gone. Captain Deho sat in his office at the Orbital Defense Station, reviewing patrol reports. His job was simple and boring, exactly how he liked it. 12 small ships patrolled the space around New Haven. They watched for asteroids and helped lost cargo vessels. Nothing exciting ever happened here. That was the point. New Haven was a farming colony, peaceful and quiet. Down on the planet's surface, Deho's sister Yunji worked in her laboratory. She was a scientist who studied plants. Her team had just created a new type of rice that could grow in harsh conditions. This rice could feed billions of people across human space. Yunji was excited. She sent a message to her brother about the breakthrough. Deho smiled when he read it. His little sister was going to change the world. At 10:47 station time, everything changed. The sensors screamed. Deho jumped from his chair and ran to the main console. His hands moved quickly across the controls. The screen showed impossible readings. 37 ships had just appeared in orbit. Big ships, warships. They were shaped like sharp blades painted in dark purple and black. Unknown vessels, this is New Haven Defense Station. Deho transmitted, keeping his voice calm. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose. The response came in a harsh, clicking language that the computer struggled to translate. When the words finally appeared on screen, Deho's blood ran cold. Humans, you occupy space claimed by the Vrath Dominion. You will evacuate this world within 2 hours. Failure to comply means death. Deho stared at the message. 2 hours? There were over 2 million people down there. Farmers, children, teachers, doctors. 2 hours wasn't even enough time to reach the spaceports, let alone board ships and launch. This is a peaceful colony, Deho replied. We have families here, children. Give us time to organize an orderly evacuation. 1 week, please. We'll leave without conflict. The alien commander's face appeared on screen. It looked like a giant insect with too many eyes and mandibles that clicked together when it spoke. The translation came through cold and final. Your request is denied. Resistance means war. 2 hours. Deho's second-in-command, Lieutenant Bora, grabbed his arm. Sir, we need to start evacuating now. Every minute counts, he nodded. His fingers flew across the console, sending emergency broadcasts to every communication device on the planet. Alarms blared in every city and town. The message was simple and terrifying. Evacuate immediately. Alien warships in orbit. This is not a drill. Chaos erupted across New Haven. Parents grabbed their children. People ran from their homes with whatever they could carry. The spaceports were soon jammed with thousands of desperate colonists. 3 large transport ships sat on the landing pads, already being loaded. Yunji received the alert in her lab. She looked at her research, years of work, data that could save countless lives. She started copying files to portable drives, her hands shaking. Around her, other scientists did the same. They all knew they might not make it out. In orbit, Deho watched the clock. 90 minutes had passed. The transports were lifting off, packed beyond safety limits. Each ship carried about 3,000 people. 9,000 total, out of 2.3 million. Sir, the Vrath ships are powering weapons, Bora reported, her voice tight with fear. Deho looked at his screen. The alien fleet was spreading out into bombardment positions. He grabbed the communication console. Vrath Commander, we need more time. People are still evacuating. The insect face reappeared. 2 hours have passed. You refused our mercy. Now face our justice. Wait! Most of our people are still down there. They're civilians, not soldiers. The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Weakness. Your species is weak. The weak do not deserve worlds. The first weapon fired. Deho watched in horror as a beam of purple energy lanced down from orbit. It struck the capital city of Promise. The beam was so bright it hurt to look at. When it faded, the city was gone. Just a crater of melted rock where 400,000 people had lived seconds before. No, Deho whispered. Then louder, no, stop. They're surrendering. But the Vrath didn't stop. More beams fired. More cities vanished in flashes of light. The planet's surface began to glow red as the atmosphere caught fire. Sir, we need to fight back, Bora shouted. Deho looked at his 12 patrol ships. Light vessels with mining lasers and small missiles. Against 37 warships, they would last seconds. But they had to try. They had to do something. All ships attack formation, he ordered. Target their weapons systems. Buy the transports time to escape. His ships dove toward the enemy fleet. They fired everything they had. A few shots hit, scorching alien armor. Then the Vrath turned their weapons on the defense force. Deho's ships exploded one by one, bright flowers of fire against the black of space. On the planet, Yunji sent one last transmission from her lab. This is Dr. Yunji, Agricultural Station 7. I'm uploading all our research data. Someone needs to continue this work. Her voice cracked. Tell my brother I love him. Tell him it's not his fault. Tell him. The transmission ended as her building vaporized. Deho screamed. He didn't realize the sound came from him. His ship shook as enemy fire tore through the hull. Warning alarms blared. The station was dying around him. Sir, we have to go. Bora pulled him toward the escape pod. Through the viewport, Deho watched his world burn. The green and blue planet was turning gray and black. The fields where he'd played as a child were ash. The cities where he'd gone to school were craters. His sister was dead. His friends were dead. Everyone was dead. The escape pod launched just as the station exploded. Deho floated in space watching the Vrath ships finish their work. They were thorough. Every settlement, every farm, every structure was systematically destroyed. The bombardment continued for 3 more hours, even though nothing remained alive after the first 30 minutes. Finally, the alien fleet stopped firing. The Vrath commander broadcast one final message. This world now belongs to the Dominion. Let this be a lesson to all who resist. Weakness has a price. Then they left, just jumped back into hyperspace, leaving a dead world behind them. The 3 transport ships regrouped near Deho's pod. 9,000 survivors. That was all. Out of 2.3 million people, only 9,000 remained. The ships turned toward the nearest human outpost, a 3-day journey away. Deho floated in silence, staring at the gray ball that had been New Haven. He recorded everything. Every image, every sensor reading, every second of the massacre. The galaxy needed to see this. Humanity needed to know. On the transport ship Mercy, a mother held her crying daughter. The girl asked where Daddy was. The mother had no answer. He'd been at work when the evacuation started. He'd told them to run, he'd catch up. He never did. In the cargo hold, an old farmer sat alone, staring at his hands. These hands had planted crops for 50 years. They'd built a home, raised children, made a life. Now they held nothing but air. 9,000 stories of loss. 9,000 survivors carrying the weight of 2.3 million dead. The ships jumped to hyperspace, running toward safety. Behind them, New Haven cooled slowly, a monument to alien cruelty and human helplessness. But helplessness, Deho swore silently, was temporary. The Vrath had made a terrible mistake. They thought destroying one colony would teach humanity a lesson about weakness. Instead, they were about to learn a lesson about human rage. 6 months passed. Human space transformed in ways that shocked even those who'd ordered the changes. Commodore Deho stood in the observation deck above Mars shipyards and watched ships being born. The view stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Construction frames held vessels in various stages of completion. Some were just skeletal frameworks, ribs of metal waiting for armor plating. Others were nearly finished, their hulls gleaming in the reflected light of the sun. The sound was constant. Even through the thick observation windows, Deho could hear it. The hammering, welding, drilling, the deep thrums of engines being tested, the sharp hiss of hull sections being sealed. It never stopped. 3 shifts worked around the clock. When one crew went to sleep, another took their place. Impressive, isn't it? Deho turned. Engineer Taijin had joined him at the window. The man looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, coffee stains on his uniform. But he also looked satisfied. You did this, Deho said. Everyone said faster construction was impossible. You proved them wrong, Taijin shrugged. I had good motivation. My brother died trying to save kids he didn't even know. The least I can do is make sure his death meant something. They watched a new destroyer being moved from its construction frame. Tugs pulled it gently toward the outfitting station where weapons and systems would be installed. Behind it, another frame was already receiving the framework for the next ship. How many now? Deho asked. We passed 300,000 2 days ago. By the time we reach Rally Point Exodus, we'll have over 700,000. Taijin smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. The Wrath destroyed 12 of your ships at New Haven. We're building 60,000 ships for each one they killed. Daeho did the math in his head. 60,000 to 1. The number should have made him feel better. It didn't. Yunji would still be dead even if they built 1 million ships. But at least the Wrath would learn that killing humans had a price. Below them, a newly completed carrier began its launch sequence. The massive ship, over 2 kilometers long, detached from its moorings. Its engines glowed blue as it moved away from the construction zone. Daeho knew where it was going. To Rally Point Exodus, where the fleet was gathering. Across human space, the same scene repeated. Earth's orbital facilities produced ships. Luna's underground factories made weapons. The asteroid belt refineries worked non-stop to provide raw materials. Every colony contributed what it could. Even the smallest outpost sent something: ships, supplies, or crew. Training was just as intense as construction. Admiral Minho had taken personal command of the tactical preparation. He'd set up massive simulation centers where entire fleets practiced coordinated maneuvers. The drills were brutal. Pilot Seung-hoon sat in his fighter cockpit, sweat dripping down his face. He'd just completed his 8th simulation run of the day. His hands ached from gripping the controls. His eyes burned from staring at targeting screens. But he'd survived all 8 runs. His simulated enemies hadn't. Better. His instructor's voice crackled through the comm. Your approach angle on target 3 was good. But you're still hesitating on the trigger. In real combat, that hesitation will kill you. Yes, sir, Seung-hoon replied. He didn't explain that he hesitated because when he fired, he saw his parents' faces, saw them in their new garden smiling, saw them vanishing in purple fire. Again, the instructor ordered. And this time, when you have a target lock, fire immediately. The simulation reset. Seung-hoon took a deep breath and began again. In another part of the training complex, Dr. June watched weapons tests. Her new kinetic penetrators were being fired at mock-ups of Wrath shield systems. The results were exactly what she'd calculated. The weapons punched through the shields like they weren't even there. Excellent work, Doctor, a admiral said beside her. These will save lives. June nodded but couldn't speak. Yes, these weapons would save human lives, but they'd also take Wrath lives. Thousands of them, maybe millions. She told herself the Wrath had started this. They'd killed first. This was justice, not murder. But late at night, she still had doubts. She pushed them down. Doubts were a luxury she couldn't afford. The fleet needed every advantage. Her job was to provide those advantages. She could worry about her conscience after the war. Intelligence officer Myung worked in the shadows while others built ships and trained crews. She infiltrated neutral trading stations, places where different species met to exchange goods and information. She wore civilian clothes and pretended to be a merchant. In reality, she was gathering intelligence. At a station near Wrath Space, she met an information broker. The alien was a small, furry creature that spoke through a translator device. You want to know about Wrath fleet movements? It chittered. That information is expensive. Myung transferred credits. I can pay. The broker's eyes gleamed. The Wrath are nervous. They've heard rumors about human ship construction. They think it's propaganda. They don't believe you can build so many ships so fast. What else? They're planning more attacks on human colonies. They call it establishing dominance, and they want to hit 3 more worlds within 2 months. Myung felt ice in her stomach. 3 more worlds. 3 more New Havens. Do you know which colonies? The broker named them. Myung paid extra for the information and immediately transmitted it back to the Admiralty. Within hours, those 3 colonies were evacuated. The civilians were moved to fortified stations. The Wrath would find empty worlds if they attacked, but the news also changed the timeline. The Admiralty had planned to launch Operation Reckoning in 8 months. Now they moved it up. 6 months. The Wrath couldn't be allowed to kill more civilians. The orders rippled through human space. Faster construction, compressed training. Everything accelerated. Commodore Daeho received his assignment. He'd command the vanguard, the first wave that would hit Wrath defenses. It was a dangerous position. The first wave always took the heaviest casualties. But Daeho had volunteered. He wanted to be there when the Wrath realized their mistake. His flagship was the Remembrance, a new heavy cruiser fresh from the Mars yards. The ship was beautiful and terrible. Sleek armor-covered weapons powerful enough to crack a moon. Point defense systems that could track 1,000 targets simultaneously. And speed, so much speed. The remembrance could outrun anything the Wrath had. Deho walked through his new ship, meeting his crew. They were young, most of them. Volunteers who'd joined after New Haven. They looked at him with something like worship. He was the man who'd survived. The man who'd tried to fight back. The man who'd saved 9,000 lives. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a failure who'd let 2.3 million people die. But if these young sailors needed him to be their hero, he'd try. Listen up, he said to the assembled crew in the hangar bay. We're the tip of the spear. When we jump into Wrath space, we'll be the first ones they see. They'll throw everything they have at us. Some of you won't make it home. The crew stood silent. Some looked scared. Most looked determined. But here's what I promise, Deho continued. Every shot we take, every ship we destroy, it's one less ship that can threaten our families. The Wrath think they can murder our people without consequences. We're going to teach them different. We're going to teach them that humans remember, and humans answer. The crew erupted in cheers. Deho nodded and dismissed them. Alone in his quarters later, he pulled up a picture of Yunji. His sister smiled at the camera, holding a rice plant like it was treasure. Soon, he whispered to the image. Soon they'll pay for what they did to you. The months rushed past. Ships launched and joined the growing fleet at Rally Point Exodus. Crews drilled. Weapons were tested. Supply chains stretched across human space, feeding the war machine. And finally, the day came. The last ship arrived at the rally point. Admiral Minho transmitted the final count to Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo. Sir, the fleet is assembled. Total count 701,847 warships. Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable. Through the viewports, he could see the fleet. It stretched in every direction, filling space with ships. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, dreadnoughts, battleships. Every classification, every size. And every single one ready to fight. This is Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo to all ships, he transmitted. Today we jump to Wrath space. Today we answer for New Haven. The Wrath wanted to teach us about weakness. Instead, they're about to learn about human strength. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. 701,847 ships charged their jump drives simultaneously. The space around Rally Point Exodus distorted and rippled with energy. And then, in a flash of light that could be seen from neighboring star systems, the fleet vanished, heading toward Wrath territory. Heading toward war. In neutral space, monitoring stations detected the massive energy spike. Scientists stared at their readings in disbelief. That much energy could only mean one thing: the largest fleet movement in galactic history. Messages were transmitted to every major species. The humans are moving. Something has made them angry. Stay clear of Wrath space. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see what humanity had become. The transport ships limped into Sanctuary Station 3 days later. The massive military hub floated in space like a small city made of metal and light. Normally, arriving ships were greeted with routine docking procedures and board traffic controllers. Today, every officer on the station stood at attention as the survivors came aboard. Daiho walked off the Mercy on legs that barely held him. He hadn't slept since New Haven died. His uniform was torn and burned. His face was covered in ash. A young ensign tried to escort him to medical, but Daiho pushed past. He had one job left. Tell the Admiralty what happened. Admiral Minho waited in the command center. He was a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes that had seen 3 wars. But when Daiho entered and saluted, those eyes showed something rare: fear. Captain Daiho, Minho said quietly, I've read your preliminary report. I need you to tell me everything. Leave nothing out. Daiho connected his data recorder to the station's main computer. The holographic display filled with images. New Haven before. Green fields, happy cities, children playing. Then the Wrath ships appearing. The demands. The bombardment. The destruction. The command center fell silent. Officers stared at the footage of cities vanishing in seconds. They watched Daiho's ships die trying to fight back. They heard Yunji's final transmission cutting off mid-sentence. When the recording ended, Admiral Minho's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the table to make them stop. How many? He asked. 92,000 dead, sir. 9,000 survivors. Someone in the back of the room made a choking sound. A young communications officer ran out, hand over her mouth. The number was too big to understand. It was more people than most space stations held. An entire world's population gone in hours. Broadcast this, Minho ordered. Every station, every colony, every ship in human space. They all need to see what happened. Within hours, the footage was everywhere. On Earth, people stopped in the streets to watch public screens showing New Haven's death. On Mars, shipyard workers stood frozen at their posts as the images played. In the outer colonies, families gathered around communication consoles and wept. Politician Jiwan watched from her office on Europa Station. She was the representative for the Outer Colonies Council, elected because she believed in peaceful expansion and diplomatic solutions. She'd given hundreds of speeches about cooperation with alien species and avoiding military conflict. Now she watched children burning and felt something break inside her. She'd been wrong. Not about peace being valuable, but about peace being possible with everyone. Some species, it seemed, only understood strength. Jiwan composed a message to the Admiralty Board. It was short. We need justice. We need it now. I will vote for any measure, any response. The Vrath must answer for this. She wasn't alone. Messages poured into the Admiralty from every corner of human space. Demands for action, calls for vengeance. Even the most peaceful colonies, the ones that had never wanted military protection, now screamed for warships. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo convened an emergency session of the Admiralty Board. 20 admirals gathered in the secure conference room deep beneath the Pacific Command Center. The walls were lined with battle flags from 2 centuries of human spaceflight. Most of those flags represented small conflicts, border disputes, pirate suppression, police actions, nothing like this. Hyunwoo was old, 73 years of service. He joined the fleet as a teenager and worked his way up through decades of peace. He'd always been proud that humanity had expanded across the stars without becoming conquerors. But now, looking at the faces around the table, he wondered if their restraint had been a mistake. Options, he said simply. Admiral Kangwoo spoke first. We send a battle group to the Vrath homeworld. 50 ships. Destroy the fleet that attacked New Haven. Demand reparations and a formal apology. Too weak, Commander Soman interrupted. She was the youngest person at the table, only 42, and she was shaking with barely controlled rage. My daughter was on New Haven. She was 8 years old. She loved drawing pictures of flowers. 50 ships doesn't begin to answer for what they did. What do you suggest? Kangwoo asked. Everything, Soman said. Every ship we have. Every weapon we can build. We don't just punish the fleet that attacked us. We remove the Vrath's ability to ever threaten us again. Several admirals shifted uncomfortably. What Soman described wasn't a battle. It was conquest. Total war. The galaxy is watching, another admiral warned. If we overreact, other species will see us as aggressors. We could face a coalition against us. Let them try, Somin snapped. The Vrath attacked a civilian colony without warning. They killed over 2 million people who had no weapons, no defenses. If the galaxy sees our response as aggression, then the galaxy can— Enough, Hyunwoo said quietly. The room fell silent. We're not here to argue. We're here to decide. The question before us is simple. What message do we send? He stood and walked to the wall where a star map glowed. His finger traced the border between human and Vrath space. If we respond with 50 ships, what does that say? It says human lives are cheap. It says you can murder millions of us and face a slap on the wrist. He turned to face them. But if we respond with everything, if we mobilize like we've never mobilized before, what does that say? It says we're terrifying, Kangwoo replied slowly. It says humanity can become something the galaxy has never seen. Exactly. Hyunwoo's eyes were cold. For 200 years, we've been peaceful explorers, friendly traders. We've built hospitals and schools instead of battle stations, and the Vrath looked at that and saw weakness. He leaned forward, hands on the table. I propose we teach them and everyone watching a different lesson. That humanity's peace is a choice, that we're capable of building paradise or unleashing hell, and that anyone who forces us to choose war will face the full weight of human industry. The vote took 3 days. The admirals argued every aspect. The cost in resources, the political implications, the moral weight of what they were proposing. But in the end, every hand rose. Unanimous Operation Reckoning was authorized. The orders went out across human space. Every shipyard was to begin military production immediately. Every reserve officer was to report for duty. Every commercial vessel over a certain size would be retrofitted with weapons. And every colony, every station, every outpost would contribute ships, supplies, and crew. The response was overwhelming. On Mars, engineer Taijin received the call to report to the orbital shipyards. His brother had died on New Haven. crushed under falling debris while trying to shield a classroom of children. Taejin had cried for 3 days. Now he dried his tears and went to work. He looked at the traditional shipbuilding process and tore it apart. Ships took 2 years to build? Unacceptable. He implemented modular construction. Prefabricated sections built simultaneously and assembled in space. Construction time dropped to 6 weeks. The shipyards hummed day and night. Sparks flew from welding torches that never stopped. Assembly drones worked in perfect coordination. And slowly, ship by ship, the fleet grew. Dr. June had been a civilian researcher studying peaceful applications of plasma physics. Now she led the weapons development team. She felt sick every time she signed off on a new warhead design. But she did it anyway. The Vrath had to be stopped. Her new kinetic penetrators could punch through shields that had protected Vrath ships for decades. Her targeting systems could track enemies across millions of kilometers. Every breakthrough made humanity deadlier. Every test successful meant Vrath ships would burn. Recruitment centers were flooded. Young people who'd never considered military service now lined up for blocks. Among them was Sung-hoon, barely 20 years old. His parents had retired to New Haven. They'd sent him a message the day before the attack telling him about their new garden. He'd been too busy to respond. Now they were ash, and Sung-hoon would never forgive himself. He threw himself into training. Perfect scores in every simulation. Top marks in tactics. He wanted to be the best because being the best meant killing more Vrath. Across human space, the transformation was total. Planets that had been peaceful gardens became industrial centers. Artists became engineers. Teachers became tacticians. Humanity was becoming a war machine, and every day the fleet grew larger. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Vrath territory. 7-1-847 ships appeared simultaneously in a display of coordination that had never been seen before. The jump was so precise that every ship arrived within seconds of each other, already in formation. Across the galaxy, neutral species monitoring the borders went into panic. Their sensors showed readings that seemed impossible. One species had just moved more ships than most civilizations owned in total. Emergency messages flew between governments and councils. Are the humans insane? What could make them mobilize like this? Someone find out what happened. The Vrath detected the human fleet immediately. Their border stations transmitted urgent warnings to the homeworld. But the Vrath leadership wasn't worried. They looked at their own fleet strength. 40,000 warships, veterans of 3 conquest wars. They'd beaten enemies with superior numbers before. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo sat on the bridge of the Indomitable and opened a channel. He broadcast on every Vrath frequency simultaneously, making sure everyone from the Supreme Overlord to the lowest soldier heard his words. Attention, Vrath Dominion. I am Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo of the human fleet. 6 months ago, you attacked the colony of New Haven. You murdered 2,292,000 civilians without warning or mercy. You believed this would teach humanity a lesson about weakness. He paused, letting the silence stretch. You were wrong. You have 6 hours to evacuate all military installations and surrender your leadership for trial. This is your only warning. The response came quickly. The Vrath Supreme Overlord appeared on screen, his mandibles clicking in amusement. The translation came through distorted but clear. Humans, you bring your merchant fleet to threaten warriors? We crushed your defense at New Haven in minutes. Your 12 ships died like insects. Now you bring more? We will sweep you from the stars and take your colonies one by one. Hyunwoo's expression didn't change. You had your chance. All ships execute Operation Reckoning. The fleet moved. The first target was Kalgor Prime, a major Vrath military stronghold. The base held 8,000 warships and was considered one of their most fortified positions. Vrath commanders there felt confident. 8,000 ships could hold off 10 times their number. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Commodore Daeho led the vanguard. His force consisted of 120,000 ships. They jumped in first, surrounding the Vrath position in a perfect sphere. The Remembrance's sensors locked onto every enemy vessel simultaneously. All ships weapons free, Daeho ordered. His voice was calm. 3 ships per target, fire. The math was simple and brutal. 3 human ships focused on each Vrath vessel. The Vrath tried to return fire, but they were overwhelmed. For every shot they took, 3 hit them. Pilot Sung-hoon launched in the first fighter wave. His squadron of 200 fighters dove toward a Vrath heavy cruiser. The cruiser's point defense systems opened up. filling space with defensive fire. But there were too many fighters. They came from every angle, coordinated through battle computers that timed their attacks to the millisecond. Sung-hoon's targeting computer locked on. He didn't hesitate this time. His finger pressed the trigger. Missiles launched from his fighter, following the path Dr. June's systems had calculated. They punched through the Wrath shields like they weren't there and detonated inside the hull. The cruiser tried to rotate, to bring more weapons to bear. But other fighters were already hitting it from different angles. In 20 seconds, the mighty warship was the expanding ball of debris. Target destroyed, Sung-hoon reported, his voice flat. He was already turning toward the next target. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Wrath ships fought bravely. They were experienced warriors who didn't break easily. But experience meant nothing against overwhelming force. Every time a Wrath ship destroyed one human vessel, 2 more took its place. The Wrath formation tried to concentrate their fire, to create breakthroughs in the human sphere. But wherever they pushed, more ships appeared to fill the gaps. The humans had built their fleet with redundancy in mind. Losing ships was expected. Planned for 20 minutes after the battle began, it was over. Not a single Wrath ship remained operational. Some had been destroyed, others were crippled, their crews evacuating in escape pods that human ships collected without hostility. Daeho looked at the casualty report. 14 human ships damaged, 2 destroyed, against 8,000 Wrath ships eliminated. The ratio was almost embarrassing. Broadcast the results, he ordered. Let every Wrath commander see what happened here. Admiral Minho received the battle data at fleet headquarters. He immediately transmitted it to every Wrath military frequency. Along with it came a simple message. This was one stronghold. You have 53 more. We are coming to all of them. The psychological impact was immediate. Wrath commanders across their territory saw the footage and felt fear. Their strongest base had fallen in 20 minutes. Kalgor Prime was supposed to be impregnable. Now it was wreckage. Some Wrath leaders began calling for negotiations, but the Supreme Overlord refused. He'd built his power on appearing strong. Backing down now would make him look weak, so he ordered his fleets to prepare for defense and sent messages claiming the Kalgor battle was a minor loss. The humans didn't give them time to prepare. The second battle came at Wrath Colony Delta, 12 hours after Kalgor Prime. The Wrath committed 12,000 ships to defend it, pulling vessels from other positions. They set up defensive positions around the colony, whirled and waited. The human fleet that emerged from hyperspace numbered 200,000 ships. The Wrath fleet commander stared at his sensors and felt despair. There were so many human ships that they blocked out the stars. He transmitted to his crews anyway. Fight with honor. Die with honor. Make them pay for every meter of space. But the humans didn't come in slowly. They didn't give the Wrath time to organize or inspire their troops. They simply appeared already in attack formation and opened fire. This battle lasted 38 minutes. When it ended, the Wrath colony was untouched, but its defenders were gone. The human fleet left occupation forces and moved on to the next target, and the next, and the next. Over 17 days, the human fleet systematically dismantled Wrath military power. 43 separate battles, 43 overwhelming victories. The Wrath tried different tactics, ambushes, concentrated defenses, scorched earth retreats. Nothing worked. The humans had more ships than the Wrath had missiles. More fighters than the Wrath had point defense systems. More everything. And they used their advantage with cold efficiency. But the victories came with a cost. 8,244 human ships were destroyed in those 17 days. 127,000 crew members died. Each death was mourned. Each destroyed ship was recorded. But the fleet kept moving forward. Commodore Daeho's flagship, the Remembrance, bore scars from 3 separate battles. A Wrath missile had torn through the port armor. Enemy lasers had melted sections of the hull, but the ship still flew. Daeho refused to transfer to a new vessel. The scars felt appropriate. Pilot Sung-hoon had lost half his squadron. Friends he'd trained with were gone. He knew their names, their stories, their hopes. But he kept flying. Every Wrath ship he destroyed was for them. For his parents. For New Haven. Dr. June reviewed casualty reports every night. She'd designed the weapons that killed so efficiently. Now she saw the cost of that efficiency, measured in thousands of human deaths. She wept alone in her quarters, then dried her tears and went back to work. The war wasn't over. Intelligence Officer Myung intercepted Vrath communications. She heard the panic in their transmissions. Calls for reinforcements that couldn't come. Orders to hold positions that couldn't be held. Pleas for mercy that wouldn't be granted. She felt something dark and satisfied in her chest. Good. Let them feel what New Haven felt. Let them know helplessness and fear. Across the galaxy, other species watched in horror. The humans had transformed into something terrifying. The peaceful traders were gone. In their place was a war machine that crushed everything before it. Some species began updating their diplomatic policies. Others quietly increased their own military budgets. Everyone learned the same lesson: never push humans too far. Finally, after 17 days of relentless assault, the human fleet reached the Vrath homeworld. The journey had taken them through the entire Vrath territory. Every military installation was destroyed or occupied. Every fleet was scattered or eliminated. The Vrath military no longer existed as a coherent force. The homeworld was defended by the remnants, fewer than 3,000 ships. Many were damaged. All were low on ammunition. They were the last Vrath warships in space. Around them, 650,000 human ships took up positions. The disparity was almost absurd. The Vrath could have surrendered, should have surrendered, but their supreme overlord ordered them to fight. To die with honor defending the homeworld. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo looked at the blue-green world on his view screen. It was beautiful. Cities glittered on the night side. Oceans reflected sunlight on the day side. Millions of Vrath civilians lived down there, families, children, people who had nothing to do with New Haven. His weapons officer stood ready. "Sir, bombardment weapons are charged. We can glass the planet in 6 hours." Hyunwoo's hand hovered over the firing authorization panel. It would be so easy. One button. Revenge for New Haven. Perfect, terrible revenge. Commander Soman stood beside him. Her daughter was gone. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo's hand moved away from the firing authorization panel. Around him, the bridge crew held their breath. They'd all lost someone. Friends, family, loved ones. Every person on that bridge had a reason to want revenge. But Hyunwoo had made his decision. Open a channel to the Vrath homeworld. All frequencies. I want everyone down there to hear this. The communications officer worked quickly. Within seconds, every screen on the Vrath homeworld showed the same image. The human fleet admiral standing on his bridge surrounded by battle-scarred officers. People of the Vrath Dominion. Hyunwoo began. His voice was tired but firm. 6 months ago, your leaders ordered an attack on our colony of New Haven. They murdered 292,000 civilians. They did this to demonstrate your strength and our weakness. On the planet below, millions of Vrath watched. Many had celebrated the New Haven attack when it happened. Their government had told them it was a great victory. Now they saw the human fleet filling their sky and understood what that victory had cost. We came here for justice, Hyunwoo continued. We have destroyed your military. Your fleets are gone. Your strongholds are occupied. Your ability to wage war has been eliminated. We could destroy your world the same way you destroyed ours. We have the weapons. We have the power. And many of my people want exactly that. He paused, letting the words sink in. On the planet, panic spread. Parents grabbed their children. People ran for shelters that couldn't protect them from orbital bombardment. The Vrath had seen what their own weapons did to New Haven. They knew what was coming. But we won't, Hyunwoo said. We won't destroy your world. We won't murder your civilians, because we are not you. We came for justice, not genocide. Beside him, Commander Soman wiped tears from her eyes. She'd wanted the Vrath to burn. Wanted them to feel what she felt. But hearing Hyunwoo's words, she realized he was right. Her daughter wouldn't want revenge that killed other children. However, Hyunwoo's voice hardened. Justice still requires payment. These are our terms. You will surrender unconditionally. Your remaining military forces will disarm immediately. Every officer and politician who ordered or participated in the New Haven attack will stand trial for war crimes. Your civilization will pay reparations to the New Haven survivors and the families of the dead. You will remain demilitarized for 50 years, with human observers stationed in your system to ensure compliance. The Vrath government tried to negotiate. They sent messages requesting changes to the terms. Softer punishments, shorter occupation. Hyunwoo rejected every request. These terms are not negotiable, he stated flatly. You have 6 hours to accept. If you refuse, we will leave. But we will place weapons platforms around your world. Any ship that tries to leave your system will be destroyed. Any attempt to rebuild military forces will be met with immediate response. You will be prisoners on your own planet until your government changes its mind. The choice is yours. Politician Jiwan watched from the command ship horizon. She'd come with the fleet to witness the conclusion. Looking at the Vrath homeworld, she felt conflicted. Part of her wanted them to suffer. The other part was proud that humanity had chosen mercy. "Do you think they'll accept?" asked Captain Bora, who'd survived New Haven with Deho. "They have no choice," Jiwan replied. "Pride is expensive. The Vrath can't afford it anymore." On the planet, the Vrath Supreme Overlord tried to rally resistance. He gave speeches about dying with honor, about never surrendering to inferior species. But his people had seen 650,000 human ships in orbit. They'd watched their fleets die. They'd learned that pride couldn't stop weapons. The government arrested the Supreme Overlord. A council of surviving politicians took power and sent a message to Hyunwoo. "We accept your terms. We surrender unconditionally." The formal signing took place on neutral ground, aboard a space station operated by one of the galaxy's older species. The Vrath representatives looked defeated. Their mandibles clicked nervously as they approached the table where human officers waited. Commodore Daiho was there, representing the New Haven survivors. He looked at the Vrath politicians and felt cold satisfaction. These beings had thought humans were weak. Now they signed surrender documents with shaking appendages. The terms were harsh. Complete demilitarization meant the Vrath could only keep police forces, no military vessels. The war crime trials would take years and result in dozens of executions. The reparations would strain their economy for generations, but they were alive. Their world was intact. Their children would grow up. It was more mercy than they'd shown New Haven. After the signing, Deho stood alone in the observation deck. Through the viewport he could see the Vrath homeworld, blue and green and alive, so different from New Haven's gray dead surface. "Yunji," he whispered to his sister's memory. We answered. "The galaxy knows now. Humans don't start wars, but we finish them." 3 months later, a memorial was unveiled on New Haven. The planet was being slowly re-terraformed, decades of work ahead. But one spot would remain untouched forever, the field of glass where Promise City had stood. Black stone walls surrounded the memorial site. On those walls, carved in letters small enough to read but large enough to last, were 292,000 names. Every person who died, every colonist, every child, every grandmother and farmer and teacher and dreamer. Deho attended the ceremony along with the other 8,999 survivors. They stood in the exact spot where they'd once walked and laughed and lived. The gray glass crunched under their feet, a constant reminder of what had been taken. Engineer Taejin was there, thinking of his brother. Dr. June came, carrying guilt for weapons that had worked too well. Pilot Sung-hoon stood at attention, his uniform decorated with medals he didn't want. Intelligence Officer Myung watched the crowd, no longer hiding in shadows. Admiral Minho gave a speech. "We built 700,000 warships in 6 months. We crossed the galaxy and broke an enemy's military power. We showed the universe that humanity, when pushed, can become a force of nature." He paused, looking at the names on the walls. "But we also showed something else, that we can choose mercy over vengeance, that we can be terrible and still be just. We answered cruelty with strength, but we also answered strength with wisdom." The ceremony ended with silence. No speeches, no music, just quiet remembrance. Each survivor touched a name on the wall. A friend, a family member, a neighbor. The stone was cold under their fingers. Above them, the human fleet maintained its orbit. 700,000 ships had fought. Now 640,000 remained, the others lost in battle. They would stay for a few more weeks, then return to their homes. Some would be decommissioned. Others would join the permanent fleet, larger now than before, but still smaller than the galaxy had feared. Across human space, life slowly returned to normal. Shipyards converted back to building cargo haulers and colony ships. Soldiers became civilians again. The war machine dismantled itself as quickly as it had been built, but everyone remembered. The galaxy had learned that humans could be pushed only so far. That peaceful didn't mean weak. That civilization and savagery could exist in the same species, and which one you met depended on how you treated them. Pilot Sung-hoon returned to civilian flight school to become an instructor. His students asked him what combat was like. He thought carefully before answering. War's terrible. It breaks things that can't be fixed. It takes people who can't be replaced. We won, but winning didn't bring anyone back. He paused, looking at the young faces before him. So we train. We prepare. We maintain our strength. Not because we want to fight, but because we never want to be helpless again. The Vrath thought they could destroy us without consequence. We taught them different, but the lesson cost millions of lives on both sides. One student raised her hand. Do you think it will happen again? Another war? Sung-hoon was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, I hope not. But if it does, the galaxy knows what to expect. They've seen what humans can build, what we can do when we're united. Maybe that knowledge will prevent the next war. Maybe fear will accomplish what diplomacy couldn't. In the Admiralty headquarters on Earth, the war records were sealed. Battle plans, casualty lists, tactical reports, all classified. But one document remained public. The official count of ships built during Operation Reckoning, 701,147 warships in 6 months. It was a record that would stand for centuries. A warning written in steel and fire. A reminder that humanity, pushed to the edge, could become something the galaxy had never seen before. Commander Somin visited her daughter's name on the memorial wall every week. She'd trace the letters with her finger and tell stories about the little girl who loved drawing flowers. Sometimes other parents joined her. They'd share memories of their children, their spouses, their friends. The loss never stopped hurting. The weight never got lighter. But standing there among the names, they found something. Not closure, that would never come, but purpose. They'd survived. They'd witnessed. They'd remember. And they'd make sure the galaxy never forgot. Dr. June eventually left weapons research. She returned to civilian science, working on medical technology. She wanted to build things that saved lives instead of taking them. But she kept one memento from her time in weapons development. A small piece of metal from the first kinetic penetrator she'd designed. When colleagues asked about it, she'd say, "To remind me, that's science.